The research vessel Meridian drifted through the cosmic void like a silver whisper against the darkness, her hull gleaming under the distant light of twin suns. Captain Marcus Reed stood in the ship's briefing room, watching the stars wheel slowly past the viewport while waiting for his guests to arrive. 3 months into their deep space mission, he'd grown accustomed to the endless expanse, but it never failed to humble him. The door chimed, and she entered with the kind of grace that made gravity seem optional. Ambassador Celeste Voss of the Netherian Confederation moved like flowing water, her luminescent skin casting a soft, pearlescent glow in the room's subdued lighting.
Hair.
Silver as moonbeams fell in gentle waves to her shoulders, and when she turned those violet eyes toward him, Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. "Captain Reed," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her species, "I apologize for my tardiness. The communication array required my attention." Cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "No problem at all, Ambassador. Please have a seat." He gestured to the conference table, noting how her simple diplomatic robes seemed to shimmer with each movement. "I wanted to discuss our approach to the Kepler mining colonies." Celeste settled into her chair with fluid elegance, her hands folding neatly before her. "The Netherian Council is most interested in establishing peaceful trade relations. Believe your colonies could benefit from our biotechnology in exchange for rare minerals." As she spoke, Marcus found himself distracted by the way her skin seemed to pulse gently with bioluminescent patterns, like constellations mapping themselves across her features. Her people were renowned for their beauty, but Celeste was something beyond even that standard. She was ethereal, otherworldly, and completely captivating. "The mining guild will be interested in that proposal," Marcus managed, pulling his attention back to the discussion. "Especially if your bioprocessors can increase yield without environmental damage. Indeed, our technology works in harmony with natural systems rather than against them." Celeste tilted her head slightly, a gesture he'd learned indicated curiosity. "Among her people, your species seems to struggle with this balance." Marcus chuckled. "We're working on it. Takes us a while to learn, but we usually get there eventually." He paused, studying her face in the soft light. The words slipped out before his brain could stop them. "You look absolutely radiant today, Celeste. Beautiful beyond measure." The effect was immediate and startling. Celeste's eyes widened, the violet depths suddenly swirling with flecks of gold. Her luminescent skin flared brighter, patterns racing across her features like lightning through clouds. For a moment, she sat frozen, staring at him with an expression caught between wonder and terror. She began, her voice barely a whisper. "Captain Reed, do you understand what you have just said?" Marcus blinked, confusion evident on his face. "I gave you a compliment. Was that inappropriate?" "I didn't mean to offend." Celeste stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the table. "Among my people, such words, they are not given lightly, meaning promise. Marcus rose as well, alarmed by her reaction. "Celeste, I don't understand. What kind of promise?" But she was already backing toward the door, her bioluminescent patterns now pulsing erratically, cycling through colors Marcus had never seen before. I need time to think, to consider." "Oh, this changes everything." "Changes what, Celeste? Wait." Marcus moved around the table, but she was already at the door. "Please, Captain Reed, I need ... solitude." With that, she fled, leaving Marcus standing alone in the briefing room, staring at the empty doorway. The stars continued their eternal dance outside the viewport, indifferent to the human captain's growing confusion and the diplomatic crisis he'd apparently created with 3 simple words. Somewhere in the ship's corridors, an alien ambassador wrestled with emotions and traditions spanning the void between worlds, while Marcus Reed wondered how a compliment could shatter the careful distance they'd maintained for months. Meridian sailed on through the darkness, carrying hearts that beat in rhythm despite belonging to different worlds, different species, different understandings of what it meant to call someone beautiful in the vast loneliness of space. Marcus paced the engineering bay like a caged animal, his boots clanging against the metal deck plating. Chief Engineer Tobias Kane watched from behind a plasma conduit, tools scattered around him as he pretended to work on routine maintenance. The truth was, he'd been watching his captain fall apart for the past 6 hours. "So let me get this straight," Tobias said, emerging from behind the conduit with a plasma wrench in hand. "You told the alien ambassador she was beautiful, and she ran away like you'd just declared war on her entire species?" "That's about the size of it," Marcus muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. "I've been trying to reach her on the comm, but she's not responding. Her quarters are locked and the computer says she's requested complete privacy." Tobias set down his tools and leaned against the bulkhead. He'd known Marcus since the academy, had served with him through 3 deep space missions, and had never seen his friend this rattled over a woman. Maybe you should ask someone who actually knows about Netherian culture. Who would that be? "We've got a crew of 23 humans and 1 very upset alien diplomat. The computer database? Genius. Remember those cultural briefings you were supposed to study before we picked her up?" Marcus stopped pacing and stared at his friend. Right, the briefings. He'd been so focused on the mission parameters that he'd skimmed the cultural sections, a mistake that was coming back to haunt him. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat in his quarters staring at the holographic display, his face growing paler with each line of text he read. The cultural database was very clear about Netherian courting rituals and the significance of certain phrases. When an Netherian was told they possessed beauty beyond measure, it wasn't just a compliment, it was a formal declaration of romantic intent, equivalent to asking for their hand in marriage. "Oh, stars," he whispered, sinking back in his chair. No wonder she'd fled. Meanwhile, 3 decks below, Celeste stood in the ship's observation lounge. Her luminescent patterns dim and subdued as she gazed out at the asteroid field they were approaching. The massive space rocks tumbled slowly through the void, some as large as moons, others no bigger than shuttlecraft. It was beautiful in its own way, this cosmic dance of stone and ice ambassador. Navigator Luna Park approached, hesitantly. The young woman had been assigned as Celeste's liaison, though they'd spoken little during the journey. "Captain Reed asked me to check on you. You missed the evening briefing?" Celeste turned, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "I am ... processing recent events, Navigator Park. Your captain has placed me in a difficult position." Luna frowned. "Difficult how? He seemed pretty upset that he'd offended you somehow." "Offended?" Celeste's bioluminescent patterns flickered with what might have been amusement. "No, child. He did not offend me." Luna's eyes widened. "He what? But you two barely know each other?" "Indeed. Yet among my people, his words carry that exact meaning. To call one beautiful beyond measure is to declare one's intention to bond for life." Celeste's patterns shifted to deeper purples and blues. The question now is whether he meant those words or if they were merely casual observation. Before Luna could respond, the ship's emergency klaxon began wailing. The lights shifted to red alert status, and Captain Reed's voice echoed through the corridors. "All hands to emergency stations. We're encountering gravitational anomalies in the asteroid field. This is not a drill." "Oh." The ship shuddered violently, throwing both women against the viewport. Through the transparent aluminum, they could see the asteroids shifting, their orbital patterns becoming chaotic as some unseen force pulled them into new configurations. "The observation deck isn't safe," Luna said, grabbing Celeste's arm. "We need to get to the emergency stations." But as they moved toward the exit, the ship lurched again, and this time the lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in. Seconds later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Marcus's voice crackled over the intercom. "Engineering teams to the primary power coupling. We've lost main power to the navigation array. Ambassador Voss and Navigator Park, report to the bridge immediately." They made their way through corridors filled with running crew members, the ship groaning around them as it fought against the gravitational forces trying to tear it apart. When they reached the bridge, Marcus was hunched over the tactical display with Tobias, both men's faces grim. "Report," Marcus said without looking up as they entered. "Hey, the asteroid field is destabilizing," Tobias explained, his fingers flying. Over the console, something's creating massive gravitational waves, pulling the rocks into collision courses. We're caught in the middle of it. Can we break free? Celeste asked, moving to stand beside Marcus at the display. Their proximity sent a jolt through him, her subtle luminescence casting soft shadows across his face. Not with main power offline, Marcus replied, finally meeting her eyes. We need someone to manually reroute power from the secondary systems. But the coupling is in a section that's been sealed off due to radiation leaks. Celeste studied the display, her mind racing through possibilities. I can do it. My people have natural resistance to most forms of radiation. Absolutely not, Marcus said immediately. Out. I won't risk your life. With respect, Captain, it is. My choice to make? Their eyes met across the tactical display, and for a moment, the chaos around them faded. Unless you truly meant those words you spoke earlier, in which case, you would have the right to protect me. The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of emergency systems. Marcus felt every eye on him, waiting for his answer. The asteroid field continued its deadly dance outside, but all he could see was Celeste's face, her patterns shifting between hope and resignation. I meant them, he said quietly. Every word. Her bioluminescent patterns flared bright with gold and silver, and for the first time since he'd known her, Celeste smiled, a radiant expression that seemed to light up the entire bridge. The radiation-flooded corridor felt like walking through liquid fire, even with environmental suits. Marcus watched through the helmet display as Celeste moved gracefully through the contaminated section, her luminescent skin providing an ethereal glow that cut through the harsh red warning lights. True to her words, she seemed unaffected by the radiation that would have killed a human in minutes. Power coupling is just ahead. Tobias's voice crackled through the cum from the bridge. You'll need to reroute the plasma flow from conduits. 7 through 12. Understood, Celeste replied, her melodic voice calm despite the danger. Through the viewport, Marcus could see her working with precise, practiced movements, her biology allowing her to interface directly with the ship's systems in ways human hands never could. Celeste, Marcus said softly over their private channel, about what I said on the bridge. Focus on getting us out of here first. Captain, she interrupted, though he could hear warmth in her voice. We can discuss the implications of your declaration when we're not about to be crushed by asteroids. The ship shuddered as another massive rock tumbled past, its gravitational pull dragging them closer to the churning field of stone and ice. Marcus gripped the corridor railing, watching Celeste work while his heart hammered against his ribs. Not just from the danger, but from the realization that he'd essentially proposed marriage to an alien diplomat he'd known for 3 months. The strangest part was that he didn't regret it. Celeste announced, and immediately the ship's lighting returned to normal. The groaning of stressed metal subsided as the engines came back online. Excellent work, Ambassador, Marcus said, relief flooding his voice. Let's get you out of there. They made their way back through the decontamination chambers, and Marcus was removing his helmet when Tobias's urgent voice echoed through the ship's comm system. Captain, to the bridge immediately. We've got company, and they don't look friendly. Marcus and Celeste rushed to the bridge to find the main screen displaying 3 sleek, predatory vessels emerging from behind a massive asteroid. Unlike the blocky human ships or the elegant Netherian designs, these were all angles and aggression, their dark hulls bristling with weapon arrays. Scary raiders, Luna Park reported from the navigation station, her young face pale. There, hailing us. On screen, Marcus ordered, settling into his command chair. Celeste took her position at the diplomatic station, though her patterns had shifted to warning colors, deep reds and aggressive oranges. The face that appeared on the screen was humanoid but clearly alien, with scarred gray skin and cybernetic implants covering half his skull. His eyes, one organic and one mechanical, fixed on Marcus with predatory intensity. I am Captain Vex Corin of the Scari Confederation, the alien growled, his voice like grinding metal. You will surrender your cargo and passengers for inspection. This is Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth vessel Meridian, Marcus replied evenly. We're on a peaceful diplomatic mission. We have no cargo of interest to raiders, the mechanical I-word, as it focused. But you do, human. The Netherian aboard your vessel is worth more than your entire ship. The mining cartels pay handsomely for exotic specimens. Marcus felt ice form in his veins. Ambassador Voss is under the protection of the Earth's Federation. Any attempt to harm her will be considered an act of war. Corin's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile. The Federation is far from here, Captain, and war requires survivors to declare it. The screen went dark, and immediately the Scari ships began moving into attack formation. "Shields up! Charge all weapons!" Marcus barked. "Tobias, I need everything the engines can give us." "We can't outrun them," the engineer reported. "They're faster and better armed than we are." Marcus turned to look at Celeste, who had remained silent during the exchange. Her patterns were shifting rapidly now, cycling through colors he'd never seen before. "What are you thinking, Ambassador?" "I am thinking," she said quietly, "that Captain Corin has made a grave error in judgment." "How so?" Celeste's violet eyes met his. For a moment he saw something ancient and dangerous lurking beneath her diplomatic composure. "He assumes that because my people are peaceful, we are defenseless. He is about to discover why the Netherian Confederation has never been successfully invaded." The first plasma barrage struck their shields, lighting up the bridge with cascading energy displays. The Meridian shook under the impact, but her defensive systems held. "Return fire," Marcus ordered. Their weapons lanced out, striking one of the Scari vessels and scoring deep burns across its hull. But the raiders pressed their attack, their superior numbers beginning to tell as they coordinated their assault. "Shields down to 60%, Luna reported. "Another hit like that and we'll start taking hull damage." Celeste stood and moved to Marcus's side, placing her hand on his shoulder. The touch sent warmth spreading through him, and he could see her bioluminescent patterns beginning to pulse in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. "Captain, I need you to trust me," she said, her voice taking on harmonics he'd never heard before. "I need an open come channel to the Scari ships." Marcus looked up at her, seeing determination and something else of fierce protectiveness. That made his breath catch. "Done. You're on an open channel," Celeste straightened, and when she spoke, her voice carried across space with the authority of millennia. "Captain Corin, of the Scari Confederation. I am Ambassador Celeste Voss, Third Circle of the Netherian Council. Keeper of the Star Path and daughter of the Deep Light. You have threatened the one who has claimed me as his own. This is your only warning. Withdraw or face the consequences." Corin's laughter crackled over the cum. "Empty threats from a diplomat. Continue the attack." Celeste smiled, and it was not the gentle expression Marcus had grown to know. This was something ancient and terrible, beautiful in the way that supernovas were beautiful, radiant, and utterly destructive. "So be it," she whispered. The lights on the bridge dimmed as Celeste's bioluminescence flared to impossible brightness. Energy began crackling around her, and Marcus realized that everything he thought he knew about the Netherian people had been carefully crafted diplomatic fiction. They weren't just peaceful. They were weapons of mass destruction, wrapped in silk and starlight, and one of them had just declared him under her protection. The Scari raiders were about to learn why you never threaten a Netharian's chosen mate. The Scari ships were gone, reduced to drifting debris in a matter of minutes. Marcus still couldn't quite process what he'd witnessed Sella standing at the center of the bridge like a living star, energy cascading from her in waves that had torn through the raiders' shields as if they were tissue paper. The power she displayed defied everything humanity thought they knew about the Netherian people. Now she lay unconscious in the medical bay, her usually radiant skin pale and dim, its bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly like dying embers. Dr. Harrison had done what he could, but admitted he knew little about Netherian physiology beyond the basics. Marcus sat beside her bed, watching the shallow rise and fall of her chest. His left arm was in a sling he'd taken shrapnel when one of the Scari ships had exploded too close to the Meridian, but he couldn't bring himself to leave her side. The energy expenditure was enormous, Dr. Harrison explained quietly from the doorway. Whatever she did, it drained her completely. Her bio-readings are unlike anything I've seen. It's as if she channeled the power of a small star. Will she recover? Marcus asked, without taking his eyes off Celeste's face. I believe so. Her people seem remarkably resilient. But it may take time. Hours passed. Marcus dozed fitfully in the chair, waking each time Celeste stirred or her patterns flickered with renewed life. It was during one of these moments, deep in the ship's night cycle, that her eyes finally opened. Marcus. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. I'm here, he said, leaning forward to take her. Hand in his. Her skin was cool, but warming, and he could feel a gentle pulse of energy passing between them. How do you feel? Like I've been trampled by a herd of Andromedon battle bulls, she said with a weak smile. But alive. We're all alive, thanks to you. Celeste, what you did out there. ... I had no idea your people possessed that kind of power. Her patterns flickered with what might have been embarrassment. It is not something we advertise. The galaxy has enough to fear without knowing that every Netherian diplomat could level a city if sufficiently motivated. Gently, but they threatened you. Threatened to take me from you. That was ... unacceptable. Marcus studied her face in the soft medical bay lighting. You nearly killed yourself protecting us, protecting me. You declared yourself my intended before the entire bridge crew, Celeste replied, her violet eyes meeting his. I'll be delayed. Did you think I would let slavers take me from you so easily? The weight of what had happened, what he'd said, and what it meant, settled between them. Marcus had been avoiding this conversation since the crisis began, but now, with her hand in his, and the memory of her sacrifice fresh in his mind, he couldn't hide from the truth any longer. Celeste, I need to be honest with you. Those words that you were beautiful beyond measure, I didn't know what they meant in your culture, but that doesn't make them less true. She turned fully toward him, wincing slightly at the movement. Explain. Marcus took a deep breath. I've been attracted to you since the moment you came aboard. Not just because you're stunning, though. You are. It's the way you move, the way you think, the way you see the universe. You're brilliant and kind and brave. And when I thought I might lose you to those raiders, he shook his head. I realized that somewhere along the way I'd fallen in love with you. Celeste's bioluminescent patterns began to glow brighter, cycling through soft golds and warm silvers. Among my people, love is not considered a sufficient foundation for bonding. We believe in compatibility of minds, shared purpose, mutual respect. Marcus felt his heart sink. We don't have those things? Oh, Marcus, she said softly, reaching up to touch his face with her free hand. We have all of those things and more. I was simply explaining why what I feel for you has been so confusing. Her touch sent warmth spreading through him, and he could see the affection in her eyes, no longer hidden behind diplomatic reserve. You feel something for me too? He asked, hardly daring to hope. From the beginning, she admitted. Your people would call it love, I think. The Netherian term is more complex. It encompasses love, yes, but also a deep recognition of the other as part of oneself. A completion. Marcus leaned closer, his good hand coming up to cover hers against his cheek. What happens now? I know. I essentially proposed to you in front of my crew, but I have no idea what that means in practical terms. Celeste's smile was radiant, her patterns now pulsing in rhythm with something that might have been joy. It means, Captain Reed, that you have committed yourself to a very long and very complicated courtship process. Netherian bonding ceremonies can take months to complete. Months? Marcus raised an eyebrow. That seems excessive. Oh, but the preliminary rituals are quite enjoyable, she said, her voice taking on a playful note he'd never heard before. For instance, the sharing of light, which involves, instead of answering, Celeste pulled his face down to hers, their lips meeting. In a kiss that sent electric warmth racing through both of them, her bioluminescent patterns flared bright, and Marcus could swear he felt starlight dancing beneath his skin. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. That, she whispered against his lips, is just the beginning. Marcus laughed. The sound full of wonder and relief. I think I'm going to enjoy learning about your culture, Ambassador Voss. I certainly hope so, she replied, pulling him down for another kiss. Because according to Netherian law, you're stuck with me now. Outside the medical bay, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, different to the two hearts that had finally found their rhythm among the vast loneliness of space. The Meridian sailed on through the darkness, carrying love that transcended species, worlds, and the cold void between them. 3 weeks had passed since the Scari attack, and the Meridian was approaching Nexus Station, a massive joint human-Netherian facility that served as a diplomatic hub between their species. What should have been a routine transfer of ambassador, Celeste had become something far more complicated, thanks to the quantum encrypted messages that had been flooding the communication array. Marcus stood in his ready room, staring at the holographic display, showing the impressive form of Admiral Thane Arcturus, one of the most senior members of the Netherian High Council. The Admiral's bioluminescent patterns were subdued, never a good sign when dealing with Netherian officials. Captain Reed, the Admiral's melodic voice carried undertones of displeasure. I trust you understand the gravity of the situation you have created. With respect, Admiral, I understand that I've fallen in love with one of your diplomats. If that creates political complications, I'm willing to work through them. Admiral Arcturus's patterns shifted to deeper blues and purples. You speak of love as if it were a simple matter. Among my people, the words you spoke to Ambassador Voss carry the weight of sacred law. You have claimed her as your intended mate, which by our customs makes you answerable to the Netherian Confederation. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Answerable how? You must prove your worthiness through the trial of stars, or release your claim and allow the ambassador to return to her duties. The Admiral's image flickered as the signal adjusted. I arrive at Nexus Station in 6 hours to oversee this process personally. The hologram faded, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. In growing anxiety, through the viewport, he could see Nexus Station growing larger, a gleaming structure of metal and crystal that housed thousands of beings from dozens of species. A soft chime announced Celeste's arrival. She entered his ready room with her usual grace, though Marcus had learned to read the subtle signs of her moods in the past weeks. Her patterns were cycling through nervous colors, and her posture carried tension he'd rarely seen. You spoke with Admiral Arcturus, she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. He mentioned something called the Trial of Stars. Care to explain what I've gotten myself into? Celeste's fingers traced patterns on the armrest, a nervous habit he'd grown fond of. It is an ancient tradition designed to ensure that bonds between our people are genuine and lasting. The trial tests compatibility on multiple levels: mental, emotional, spiritual. If I fail, then our bond is declared invalid and I returned to diplomatic service. Her voice was carefully neutral, but Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. I would be assigned to the outer colonies, far from Earth space. Marcus leaned forward, taking her hand in his. That's not going to happen, Marcus. You don't understand the complexity of what we're facing. The trial will expose every aspect of our connection to the Council's scrutiny. They will judge whether our feelings are genuine or merely physical attraction. Let them judge, Marcus said firmly. What we have is real, Celeste. Not afraid. Of their tests, her bioluminescent patterns brightened with hope and affection. I pray you are right, my love. Nexus Station's Grand Assembly Hall was a marvel of engineering, its crystal dome providing a panoramic view of space while accommodating the environmental needs of multiple species. Marcus stood before the assembled council wearing his formal dress uniform and trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. Celeste stood beside him, radiant in traditional Netherian ceremonial robes that seemed to be woven from captured starlight. Her patterns were formal and controlled, betraying none of the nervousness he knew she felt. Admiral Arcturus presided from the elevated platform, his imposing presence commanding the attention of everyone in the hall. Captain Marcus Reed of Earth, you have claimed bonding rights with Ambassador Celeste Voss. Do you understand the sacred nature of this commitment? I do, Admiral. Then let the trial of stars commence. The Admiral gestured and the lights dimmed. First, the sharing of truth. You will both submit to the memory link, allowing the Council to judge the sincerity of your bond. 2 Netherian technicians approached with devices that looked like crowns of crystalline light. Marcus felt a moment of hesitation having alien technology probe. His mind wasn't exactly appealing, but one look at Celeste's encouraging smile steadied him. The device settled over his head, and immediately his consciousness expanded. He could feel Celeste's mind touching his, sharing memories and emotions with startling intimacy. He saw himself through her eyes, their first meeting, his accidental proposal. The moment she realized she loved him despite every diplomatic protocol telling her it was impossible. In return, she experienced his memories, his growing fascination. With her, the terror he'd felt when she'd nearly died saving them from the Skari. The moment he'd realized that somewhere between their formal briefings and shared meals, she'd become the most important person in his universe. The link faded, leaving them both breathing hard and acutely aware of the Council's scrutiny. "The bond is genuine," Admiral Arcturus announced, his patterns shifting to warmer colors. "Second trial, harmony of purpose, claim to love across species boundaries. Prove that your differences strengthen rather than divide you." What followed was a complex series of test-solving problems together, navigating cultural scenarios, demonstrating how their combined perspectives created solutions neither could achieve alone. Marcus's human intuition and Celeste's Netherian logic complemented each other perfectly, each covering the other's blind spots. Hours passed. Through each challenge they moved as one, their connection deepening with every shared glance and coordinated response. Finally, Admiral Arcturus raised his hand. "Trials are complete." He paused, his expression unreadable. "Captain Reed, Ambassador Voss, your bond has been tested and found true. The Netherian Council recognizes your union." The assembly hall erupted in applause from the human contingent, while the Netherians expressed approval through synchronized light displays that turned the chamber into a galaxy of stars. However, the Admiral continued, raising his voice, "Such a union requires ceremony. Are you prepared to undergo the ritual of binding stars?" Marcus looked at Celeste, seeing joy and love blazing in her violet eyes. "We are." The ritual that followed was unlike anything in human experience. As they spoke vows in both languages, Celeste's bioluminescent patterns synchronized with the chamber's lighting systems, turning the entire station into a beacon visible across half the system. They exchanged not rings, but crystalline nodes that would keep them connected across any distance. When they kissed to seal their bond, every Netherian in the chamber flared with shared light, and Marcus felt something fundamental shift in his perception of the universe. It was no longer just human, he was part of something larger, connected to Celeste in ways that transcended simple love. Now Admiral Arcturus announced with what might have been amusement, "Captain Reed, you have the distinction of being the first human to undergo Netherian bonding. Your diplomatic credentials are hereby approved." "Congratulations, Ambassador Reed." Marcus blinked. "Ambassador?" Celeste laughed, the sound like silver bells. "Did you think you could marry a Netherian diplomat and remain a simple starship captain? We have work to do, my love. Worlds to explore, species to unite, futures to build together." As they stood together before the assembled crowd, Marcus realized that his accidental proposal hadn't just won him the woman he loved. It had opened doorways to possibilities he'd never imagined. The stars stretched endlessly before them, full of promise and adventure. And they would face it all together, bound by love and light across the vast darkness of space. The end.